right, our next presenter is West Virginia State Historic Preservation Office, Meredith Drystad, Acting Deputy. Eddie, you're going to connect us, is that right?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Can you hear us?
Oh, very good. Okay, great. Can I share my screen as well?
Please.
Okay, let me try that. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Excellent.
It is not in full screen mode.
Okay,
But we do see it.
how about that?
Excellent.
Okay, great. Well, thank you all very much for having me. My name is Meredith Drystad. I am the Acting Deputy SHPO at the State Historic Preservation Office. Some of you may know Susan Pierce, who was our long-term Deputy SHPO, retired 2 weeks ago. So it's a new role for me, very exciting. But I also luckily still work with the rehabilitation of historic structures across the state through the tax credit program and through other funding programs. So I'm going to talk about that mostly today because it's already been sort of highlighted the history of this space, but all these different buildings. But as has been noted, these are historic buildings downtown on Washington Street. So just a quick overview is that here are some of the ideas of Jefferson County's historic listings. We have 10 historic districts, including downtown Charlestown, and then 89 individually listed properties, which is a huge number of properties. So it's a really great thing to see. And again, this was already sort of touched on earlier, but just to note that there are 6 resources downtown that contribute to the National Register, to the Downtown Charlestown Historic District. And then, of course, the Jefferson County Courthouse, which was originally constructed in 1837 and was largely rebuilt after the Civil War damage occurred in the early 1870s. It is one of 16 National Historic Landmarks across the state of West Virginia, so it's really an important resource, and y'all are very, very lucky to have an NHL in your backyard. Not everyone can say that. It was listed as a National Historic Landmark for its connection to the West Virginia Mine Wars and the treason trials of Union miners, which was held at the courthouse in the early 1920s. It was held there mostly because of its distance from the activity of the West Virginia Mine Wars. It's trying to be impartial. So mostly what I'm talking about are the financial incentives that our office offers for anyone who would redevelop any of these historic properties, or even city government, other forms of nonprofits that were mentioned earlier who could acquire these properties could take advantage of these financial incentives. So first off, talking about planning funding. It's not cheap to get architectural plans prepared for buildings. So our office offers the survey and planning grants, which are due October 31st each year. So it can give you a historic structures report, which is a full understanding of the building's alterations over time, present conditions, and recommendations for rehabilitation. There are also feasibility studies that this grant funds. So any kind of, how can we do this technically and financially to make a new use out of a historic property can be done with feasibility studies. And then plans and specifications. So, your specific drawings and technical specs that you need to get, your masons there, your rough carpenters and things like that to get your building rehabbed. Federally, the National Park Service offers what are called the HER grants, but the History of Equal Rights grants. So any property associated with any equal rights movements could receive funding through this program. And it provides architectural and engineering services between $15,000 and $50,000 through this grant program. Then, and maybe everyone's favorite, is the physical preservation funding. So our office offers the development grant, which is due each March 31st, and it's a 50-50 matching grant, up to about $50,000 per project. So it's really good for, a brand new roof or putting in, rehabbing windows, things like that. It must show a benefit to the community. I think that would be an easy case to make for any of these properties, which are right downtown. Our office also offers emergency grant funding, which is available on a rolling deadline. That's also 50-50 match, and that's usually for kind of a smaller scale project like this parapet wall on a roof in Fairmont that fell off during a windstorm. The Save America's Treasures grant is one of the National Park Service's largest funding grants. It is for properties that have national historic significance. So when you're thinking of your Jefferson County Courthouse, which is an NHL, it would automatically be eligible for this kind of a grant. And you can receive between $125,000 and $750,000 in grant funding through this program. So that's a pretty easy argument to make. You can also make the argument for the SAT grant for properties that are not NHLs as well. The subgrant program, Charlestown itself is a certified local government, is the whole county of Jefferson County. So either entity would be able to apply for the full run grant, which is really to develop rural communities and to rehabilitate historic structures in those communities. So basically, either your local governments there could apply for this funding and allocate that funding out to nonprofits or individual property owners. The National Trust for Historic Preservation also offers a number of grants. I won't read through them all, but just know that the National Trust is an option. The Preservation Alliance of West Virginia also has a microloan program and a Saving Historic Places grant. PAWV is our office's nonprofit partner, so they kind of help shepherd the preservation program on their end as well. Brownfields assistance and grants. So the Brownfields Assistance Center for any kind of hazardous materials can help fund and actually help you apply for grants to mitigate hazardous substance or contaminants. So lead, asbestos, chemical waste, anything you can think of, essentially, they can help you apply for grant funding and receive the grants to do this mitigation. Other grants you might consider would be, your statewide preservation groups, regional preservation organizations, citywide preservation organizations. Sometimes your cities will have like a facade improvement grant or upper floor incentive grants. These are all great ways to bring extra money to a project. And then, no bias here, but my favorite program is the Historic Tax Credit Program. And this is a really large program throughout the state right now. And that we used over, I think, $98 million in tax credits last year. So it's a really successful program across the state. But it's administered jointly by our office in Charleston and the National Park Service in Washington. So we work together on this to ensure that properties are rehabilitated according to federal standards, and so then the owner can receive a tax credit on their expenses. So one that's familiar to you up on the right there, top right, perhaps in Charlestown, and then over at Berkeley County Interwoven Mills on the bottom right there. These are two of our recent tax credit projects. And these are not insignificant numbers, excuse me, A total of 45% that you have spent on the rehabilitation of a structure would be earned back in tax credits through federal and state programs. So that's a huge chunk of change, and it really makes these projects possible. So any of the buildings that we have discussed so far that are listed on the National Register are eligible for these tax credits. We follow the Secretary of the Interior's standards for rehabilitation, so we're trying to keep character-defining features while also modernizing these buildings for everyday use. A quick glance on what expenses count towards the tax credit, or QREs. Any structural component of a building, walls, roof, chimneys, soft costs like architect and engineering fees, construction period interest and taxes, those all qualify for the tax credit. Only non-qualified costs really are acquisition costs, so not the purchase price of the building, any additions, appliances like refrigerators, cabinets, decks, exterior work, as well as feasibility studies. But majority-wise, the expenses used on a building will qualify for the tax credit. And federal credits must be used by the purchaser of the property, but state credits can be transferred or sold. So that's what makes the state credit kind of a more interesting tool for investors. They can sell those credits outright. And that is it on my end. Feel free to reach out with any questions. We're always happy to help SHPO and make sure these projects can happen to redevelop downtowns.
Thank you, Ms. Drysdale. Do you have any examples of using those tax credits in Jefferson County, perhaps in Charlestown specifically?
Yeah, so I can go back to it here. Oh, don't buy it. The Stevenson is a project that just wrapped up in Charlestown, at the top right there. That was a tax credit project. We also had a commercial project last year, 2 years ago, downtown in one of the storefront buildings. So those are two recent examples. Yep.
And could you, using those examples, explain again how this works?
Sure. So the tax credit is received from the owner of the property on the qualified expenses made throughout the process of the project. So when you're rehabilitating your building, most structural elements of the building are going to count. Well, all structural elements of the building really will count towards that expense. So say you purchase a building and you do $100,000 worth of work to it, you would receive essentially $45,000 back in federal and state tax credits.
It's very interesting. Thank you. I'm sure our professional staff would have much more insightful, educated questions. That's the best I've got for now, but I'm definitely interested in this topic.
Great.
Anything else from our fellow commissioners? I don't have anything. Thank you, Ms. Drysdale.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.